Hello and welcome to Newsdesk here at the Digital Identity Summit 2019 in London. I'm now joined by David Birch, who is an author and commentator on digital financial services, and he's going to be delivering a keynote later on today entitled This Time It's War. David, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
This time it's war. You've got to explain that one.
Well, they asked me to talk about where digital identity might be going next, and I have one or two ideas, but I wanted to frame them in a slightly different context. So the point I'm trying to make is that this isn't about individual companies anymore. It's not about fraudsters stealing credit card numbers and that sort of thing. We're actually in a cyber war now, with both state and non-state actors in a continuous attack mode. I mean, I can't give you a date when this war started, and I certainly can't imagine any conceivable armistice when it might come to an end. But it's a cyber war. This isn't about kids in basements trying to steal credit card numbers anymore.
That's the common misconception, isn't it? And people often will forget that it's an industry in itself. I was talking to somebody last night at the dinner, and where they're getting third-party experts to help them. What chance have we got to actually stay ahead of them or to even keep up with them?
Well, the key quote in my keynote that I'm building it around, Niall Ferguson, the historian, when he was writing about this a couple of years ago, he said it's a war between networks, right? And that's how we have to react. So there are networks attacking us, and we have to respond as a network, not as individual actors. And I'm going to make one or two suggestions in the keynote about how the financial sector in particular might decide to advance in the digital identity space by seeing digital identity as a building block in our defences against this cyber war, as I say, rather than a sort of individual cost mainly for companies.
Now, you've been covering this for many, many years. Yeah. In fact, you've been talking about it in your book, which is called Before Babylon, Beyond Bitcoin. That's a huge period of time that you've been looking at it. Does it feel like we're almost accelerating in the speed of change?
Well, accelerating, of course, because the pace of technological change continues to accelerate. But the point of the book is that there are the historical evolution of money, payments, financial services, the institutions that go with it, is something we can learn a lot from. I mean, you do sort of feel like, in the Bitcoin space, for example, which is people are kind of reinventing all over again the institutions that we had before. It sounds a bit snobbish, but possibly because they don't spend enough time looking at history. So I wanted to make that sort of point, but also I wanted to make some perspectives on the future that people could see were informed, that are not mere speculation. I have to say, I'm feeling a bit smug at the moment because one of my key predictions was about the rise of private currencies and private money, and of course the Facebook announcement last week has made me look like a genius, I'm happy to say. So.
Well, talking about looking into the future, and certainly when it comes to digital identity, your new book is going to be all about, will robots need passports? What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is, so we're talking today about digital identity of people. How do we identify people? How do we move into this kind of reputation economy, which is anchored in real identities? But of course, where we're going is a world where everything will need an identity, not just people, but things and bots and AIs, and so this the future transactional world isn't about people transacting with people. It's about things transacting with things. And people actually might be quite a small subset of that in the long run. And so we have to construct versions of digital identity which are more flexible and more encompassing than the way certainly some people think about it today. Like, I can take your biometric or a passport or something, and that's your digital identity. Well, it really isn't. And if you start thinking about how that's going to work, when people draw this on the whiteboard, it was like, oh, well, I'll give your car permission to park in my garage. And on the whiteboard, that's clouds and it all looks great. But if you go down one level, well, how exactly is that going to work? How does your car know that it's your car? How did it know that you gave me permission? How does it know who I am? How does the garage door know that I gave permission to the car? Once you go down a level, there's nothing there. And so my point is, yes, we have an immediate digital identity problem to fix. I think I have one or two useful ideas about that. But digital identity, if we're thinking in the long run, is a much bigger topic, a much bigger subject.
It was really interesting you talk about that side of things, because last night we had a fascinating talk all about PSD2. And when you bring in regulation like that, how can that keep up with change? What impact does that have?
Well, look, if you're in the financial services field, we come to events like this and talk about new technology, but the truth is we're existing inside a kind of regulatory envelope, and which is evolving, I'll admit. But nonetheless, for most people in this room, the priorities over the next 6 months certainly are set by regulation, not by technology. And so understanding how to, at the same time, absorb the costs and implement what's necessary because of regulation, but at the same time look at how to turn that into a platform for new products and services, I think is actually quite an interesting topic. Everybody has to spend the money on two-factor authentication, secure customer authentication. I'm sure your audience is bored with hearing about all of this stuff, but I mean, the general idea. So if under the XS2A API, the PISP or AISP has to do 2FA SCA for ASPSP. You're not writing this down?
No, I'm trying to look as if I know what you're talking about.
Look.
You lost me on ASPI.
The point is that people have to spend money on putting this new strong authentication in place. And my sort of feeling was, if you're going to have to spend the money on doing that, then why not explore ways that we could make that a platform for new products and services? Strong authentication is an integral part of the digital identity story. So having that in place, in my opinion, puts banks and other financial institutions in pole position to deliver these new services. I mean, we can sit back and let Facebook or Apple or Google or somebody else do it if we want to. But given we're spending this money on infrastructure, why not think a little more forward-looking and use it to create our own services? Why aren't banks providing those services?
Now, we've got over 400 people here at the summit today, and they're really looking for some key insights of what they should be acting on now and what's in the near future for them. What's your take on that?
I think a priority in the financial sector is to come together to start building a joint proposition in that space. Earlier in the year, Mark Carney, Governor of the Bank of England, said that the lack of digital identity in the financial services space, I can't remember his exact words, but he was basically saying it's becoming an intolerable friction. If we want a more efficient financial sector, not just to combat fraud, but to make life easier for people and companies, we have to have some kind of digital identity infrastructure. And I think one way that the industry could respond to that is to look at developing some form of trying to create a digital identity for everybody, boiling the ocean. And in the UK, we've seen real problems with that kind of approach. But if we narrow it down more specifically to try and construct some sort of financial sector identity, hopefully on an international basis, given that banks already cooperate, I mean, we already have Visa and MasterCard and things like that, it ought to be possible to construct something viable in the financial sector, which means that your identity can be managed and actually your privacy can be protected in ways that just aren't possible now. So I think the priority is for the financial sector to work together, to construct this vision of identity.
David, thank you very much indeed. We're looking forward to seeing your keynote later on today and all of the insights that we're going to get from the summit. So thank you again.
No, thanks for having me.
And if you'd like to see more of our interviews here at NewsDesk, just look at the hashtag of DI Summit 19. Thanks for watching.